Good afternoon. My name is Steven Carasello. My presentation today is on disruption, specifically automation. So today I have labeled my presentation, The Workers' Disruption Automation. As we know, throughout our course we have talked about change and dual transformation. So change can be both good and bad, especially when it comes to the use of technologies. Automation is one such technology that has its pros and cons to every implementation and use. And that said, its use may not be right for every organization. One dilemma facing economists today is the use of automation instead of employees to fulfill tasks. This use for restaurants and fast food industries is becoming more prominent as the fight for an increase in minimum wage becomes even greater. Automation, the major disruption. Automation, if implemented throughout the United States, could lead to a radical change within the job market, leading to a potential to shrink the number of restaurant industry jobs, especially entry-level positions, radically. The implementation of automation can lead to the disruption of local small businesses and lead to an increase in unemployment. So now that we have that out of the way, a little bit of information on the advantages of automation. The first is the reduction in production or wait time. Of course, having a machine that is automated definitely would speed up the production or wait time of orders, since no thinking is needed by the machine. There is also better repeatability and less human error. Next, there is an increase in accuracy and repeatability, like I mentioned above. When an automated machine is programmed to perform a task over and over again, the accuracy and repeatability compared to an employee is far greater. Of course, there is less human error, as no one is perfect. We are all prone to making mistakes, as is evident. Anyone can attest to when you pull up to the drive-thru. There's usually a mistake with your order, but with automation that would be decreased. The next advantage is a decrease in labor and employee costs. By adding automated machines to an operation, that means less employees are needed to get the job done. It also indicates less safety issues, which leads to financial savings. With having less employees, there are numerous costs that are diminished or reduced, such as payroll, benefits, sick days, etc. Next, we'll discuss the disadvantages of automation. The first one being less versatility. By having a machine that can perform a certain task, that it would limit the flexibility and variety of tasks that an employee could do. Next, automation is a large initial investment. Automated machines can be one of the most costly operating costs for a company, with automated machines running anywhere between thousands and millions of dollars, depending on the type and degree of automation and the type of organization. Can be a large initial investment. The second disadvantage is an increase in unemployment. By increasing the number of automation facilities within organizations, there are less employees required, which would cause high unemployment rates. And of course, there's unpredictable costs. Unfortunately, there can be several unpredictable costs that may exceed the actual costs saved by the automation itself. Some of these costs can include research and development costs of automating a process, preventative maintenance costs, and the cost of training employees to operate automated machines. According to my research, while automation has become a resource for remaining competitive in the manufacturing industry and the fast food industry, there are definitely some factors to be considered in order to be competitive and to get a return on the investment. Depending on the operation, automation may or may not be a good fit. If it is a small operation with low production quantities, like a manufacturing organization, the initial investment of purchasing an automated machine would not be economical. While that example focuses on manufacturing operations, my focus in today's presentation is to look at how automation will affect the restaurant and fast food industry if an increase in minimum wage drives the need for said automation. Shockwaves across the fast food industry. The Fight for 15 movement has led to states and cities across the United States to adopt an increase of minimum wage, which has led to supporters of the increase to argue a minimum wage increase would provide for money to support the employees and their families. That would also stimulate the local economy by giving workers more money to spend. While there is support for the Fight for 15 and an increase of minimum wage, there are groups of businesses that oppose the wage hike, with this case specifically based in our state of Massachusetts. To back up the reasoning, these groups have stated that such a significant increase of the minimum wage could be devastating to businesses which are facing a number of rising costs, including a series of wage hikes that increased the statewide minimum to $11 an hour previously. The raising of minimum wage has led to the exploration into automation. Fast food industry leaders like chain Jack in the Box has considered swapping some cashiers with kiosks. To follow that example with Jack in the Box, they found that technology such as kiosks resulted in higher average check and helped with efficiency. With the increase of interest in automation within chains like Jack in the Box, the small businesses' fears may come to be realized, and that would lead them to go into bankruptcy. Why? What factors would play into that? By 2018, the number of restaurants would reach 247,191, roughly. Around half of the number of fast food units in the United States is made up of quick service franchise establishments such as McDonald's, Wendy's, Subway. In 2012, Subway had the most units in the United States with roughly 25,000 stores, followed by McDonald's and Starbucks. The revenue of the United States fast food industry was set to reach over $200 billion in 2014, and it was estimated that the industry would employ more than 4.1 million people, which would equal out to about $41 billion in wages to its employees. So with that in mind, that economic factor, automation may be a good fit for large franchise companies, as their wages to their employees are a little over $51 billion per year. But since automation is an expensive investment, many businesses will be unable to switch from employees to the automation discussed above. If the trend of a higher minimum wage continues, many businesses like Wendy's and McDonald's will most likely opt to make the investment. This could lead to small businesses going to bankrupt, as they need to raise their prices to offset the increase in labor costs. Automation, the major disruption. By 2030, a study conducted by the McKinsey Global Institute, it's estimated that between 400 to 800 million of today's jobs will be automated by 2030. This may seem like a shock at first, but with the change to automation comes additional career paths to fill those lost jobs, at least in theory. In the United States, it seems it's the middle class that has the most to fear when it comes to unemployment because of automation. But in places where labor is cheaper and technology is more expensive, jobs may be less vulnerable than those in developed markets. Next, we're going to touch on figure 1.1 and 1.2 in the text. The figure 1.1 on the left shows employees in the restaurant industries at the top, at the peak where the square is, while automation, the star, is below that but is increasing. As it does, and wages do increase, figure 1.2 shows that automation is at the top, while fast food employees face unemployment and lose their place of prominence in the industry. That is because possibly the minimum wage increase drove up the need for automation, bringing about mass unemployment rates. So according to my research, minimum wage increase could lead to an increase in the use of automation. With that increase in automation, smaller businesses who cannot compete with franchises may go out of business, which of course ending with the possibility of an increase in unemployment. And according to that study, as I mentioned above, that could be anywhere from 400 to 800 million jobs. So in conclusion, automation would be the major disruption to the job market and the fast food industry employees, as well as small businesses trying to compete with those franchises. I would like to thank you, and I hope this was an interesting presentation. Good afternoon. My name is Steven Carasello. My